All right. Hello and good day to you, whatever time of day you listen to these videos. My name is Tomlins Nyback, and this is 365 Days to Racial Change, talking about issues and where black people are in American culture, in this white dominated superstructure we call the United States of America. We are being informed primarily by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. I've never met him, but I like what he has to say. Hopefully he is, if I ever get a chance to meet him, he's as dynamic in person as he is professionally. We talk about black folks here. First text of his I read, a Black History Reader, 101 questions you never thought to ask. And trust me, I never thought to ask the questions and subjects he broaches in that book. And when I came and read through some of those issues, it just lit a fire on me. So here we are, another day. I think this is day 8. I hope I lose count. I don't know. Just you stop me when I get hit 365. A book that further illuminates and focuses his subject, black labor and white wealth. And he's got him, I personally think he's got him upside down, because white wealth, as we're going to learn in the coming days and through this process, white wealth rests on the backs of black labor. But it's an appropriate title. It got the book made, so it's all right. And finally, even more focus, his plan, national plan, for blacks to come together and make a strong black community and be better in the race of racism, and how to maneuver in that as a black community. Now, I wanted a disclaimer. I don't say this, harp on this too often, but his plan, he has even a mission statement in here where he was hoping to see the fruition of this project really unfold by the year 2005. The series of messages are being made in 2019. So as my life goes, I'm late again by 14, 15 years. Having said that, it really makes me reflect. What was I doing when I guess he was having his heyday and making these lectures and going around the country? He was trying to get a black business district going in Detroit. A lot of great, huge things, but I was just caught up around 2002, 2003, just trying to make my own ends meet. I know I was putting together at that time, being sober, clean and sober from cocaine and alcohol for 3 years. So and I was busy truck driving and doing a lot of driving, and didn't have internet access, on and on. So I missed the boat on this stuff. I think I would have been on fire and had a different take on life, because some of these issues, some societal pressures of America were pressing on me even at that time, but I couldn't articulate, I couldn't voice it. I had no community, no one to talk to. I was already immersed in white culture and whatnot. So I missed that, but better late than never. How about that? Oh, also today's a light day. We're going to talk about, speaking of talking about, 2 more subjects. First is our Us Two, hashtag behind me here. You hashtag that, you'll find a community talking about these issues and probably articulating these subjects a whole lot better than myself. And finally, Uncle Tom's Cabin. I wish this had been a textbook when I was coming up. It was a textbook actually in some schools way back when, and it's a fictional um, piece about slavery, slave masters, slave handlers in America. That's actually our subject today. But first, before I get into our subjects, I want to rant. Hopefully in my introduction I told you about that some would be ranting. I want to keep my ranting at a minimum here, so I'm going to give myself 5 minutes maximum for this little rant. In this community, in this Dr. Claude Anderson community, like I often do, I follow things like breadcrumbs, and names start to come out. People start to stand out. I start to see videos. I'm actually presently enrolled doing a trial period in a business school. I'm going to erase all names. I don't want any names coming past my lips. But it's a business school, and I'm trying, seeing what's going to happen in 30 days. And I would like my measurable goal, my desire is to create enough wealth to sustain staying in that school after the enrollment period. That having been said, a person stood out. I reached out to them for help. I have some kind of blind spot about getting businesses started. I want to do it the right way, on board. I'm from the music community, and I have all these what you may call like these jackleg and these phony guys that believe that their work is protected if they mail it to themselves, and that's not true. That's not legally true. You have to have your work registered with the Library of Congress for it to be protected. And I've done that. I've gone through that process before, and I've talked to music professionals. You don't mail yourself music and then come to court with an unopened mail letter and say that your work is original. It's whatever. The law of the United States, the way the game is played as far as copyright, is you must have your work registered with the Library of Congress. You get a number and all this stuff. You don't get any favor if it comes down to legal matters for handing the judge this self-addressed envelope with supposedly your music in there. That's not how you get legal favor. You don't win a court case like that. Anyway, I digressed. Where was I at? Where's I at in my 5 minutes? So anyway, this person's kind of stood out. I reached out to this individual for help, and I told him, help me make this amount of money. It's not a big amount because I'm on this free trial, and it'd be nice if I could get this measurable result. I can continue in the community. It'd be a great milestone for me. Let's do it. But they came back with, this is a black individual. We're talking blackness. So this is part of the reason for my rant here as well. So I'm telling this, so I get back the email from this individual with this exorbitant number, large number fee, and I got a lot of issues with that because I came through her through Dr. Anderson's community, so to speak, and the context of anybody I communicate with in this process is going to be about bringing black folks together almost at any means, in any ways possible, to get us as a group and a community to kind of rise up here in America. based on some very disturbing facts about Black history here in this country, right? So one thing he talks about, we're going to talk about this in the next couple of days because I'm reading through this book and I stumbled onto some real powerful paragraphs that stood out that I want to talk about and see if I can articulate them. This idea of ethno-aggregation, where we deal with one another, communities deal with one another, the Chinese deal with one another, whites deal with one another, Hispanics deal with one another, right? Asians deal, communities deal with one another. Cambodians, when they come over here, they make their community and they deal with one another and they make it happen there first. It's nucleus and they grow out. Ethno-aggregation is what happened. And what one of Dr. Anderson's complaints, which is this is not going to be news for you, is Black people are unable to come together. Now, he cites some very specific reasons for that, rooted in slavery. But you mark down this recording number or whatever, and remember me saying this, like, if I get into position, then may a curse fall on me if I don't help someone that comes to me in need. Now, her errors, okay, it's a her. This individual's error is twofold. One, she's not helping, she's in the context, I'm meeting her in the context of this community and uplifting Black folks, right? And she failed there. She failed there. I don't want to fail there. I have in the past many times. I'm educated now. Hopefully I've got some foundation where I can consistently be aware of how I'm treating Black folks especially. So that's one error. Her second error is this. I'm taking a 30-day free trial course, right? Now that I'm into it, I feel like maybe I would have paid. This is kind of like a monthly subscription thing. I like what I'm hearing. It didn't get to a how-to yet. I want to have some criticisms if they don't get to some how-to and some specific steps. But like an infomercial, they are giving me a lot of information now. I'm not irritated going through the process, so it must be pretty good. Whenever I'm infomercialed into stuff, and I've looked at a lot of money-making ways and stuff and how-to stuff, and it's always starts out with the infomercial and testimonials and stuff like that. So this time I'm making it through it. So, I'm more willing to put some money out of my pocket. Gotta spend money to make money, they say, right? I'm cool with that. This individual totally missed an opportunity to make. It's a much smaller fee than what she's emailed back to me. It's probably 10 times smaller. But that fee, she could have wrote me an email, go to the post office, register this, maybe just a few things to checklist, you know. Well, okay, her problem's threefold. I'll get to the third one in a second. But the second error is she missed out on just easy money, on the easy way. But like Black folks do, like I've done, she just slammed the door in my face and put up a barrier like white America does. And I'm still scratching my head, wondering where to get started, how to get started. Legally, and like I want the paperwork, I want who to go to first and all this stuff. But don't worry about that, because you know what? Compared to yesterday, I'm one day closer to my breakthrough, and I know my breakthrough's coming. Yeah, I claim it. Her third mistake is rapport. And I told her a little bit about myself and all that in these videos where where I was introduced to this individual. They're highly spoken of. We've got a lot of alphabet soup behind this person's name and all that credibility and whatnot. But you don't get into my pocket unless I know you. You know? So that's my rant. Now we got a few minutes, which is probably appropriate for what I want to talk about. Uncle Tom's Cabin. We're going to go have a part 2 tomorrow, talk about the first chapter. But just I want to introduce you to the book, written by Harriet Beecher Stowe. It was published, I'm not sure if it was the compilation or when she started it. I'll explain that in a little bit. 1852. All right, the Civil War is either coming or I got to get some Civil War dates, but the country is about to or has already gone through some serious changes through the Civil War. Now, okay, here we go. Excuse me. So it was published, the compilation, I guess itself, was published in 1852. A year earlier, this book started out as a what they call a serial, like a comic strip or a weekly one page piece in a publication at the time called the National Era or something like that. All this stuff is available, quickly found on Wikipedia. And what she did was, over the course of about 40 weeks, she told a story about Uncle Tom, a black slave. He had a family, and he goes through his ups and downs and trials and being sold, separated from his family. Nothing surprising happens to him as a slave, except maybe later on. I had not finished the book, but there's some more dynamics coming on. I don't want to be a spoiler. I want you to go out and get the book, actually, and read it. Read all these books that I mentioned to you today. So about Uncle Tom, but there's some other dynamics going on. There's about slaves escaping, and it hints a little bit about the children, the offspring, as a result of the white slave masters sleeping with their black female slaves. It's so sad too, because the offspring of the black mother, even though the father's white, is still a slave. Remember Chicken George and Roots, Chuck Connors and Ben Vereen finally have that conversation, and Ben Vereen is like, are you my father? Because Chuck Connors slept with the Kizzy character, right? Which was actually a rape in their first encounter. So that is that's the sad thing about the offspring of the union between slave master and female slave. It's Dr. Anderson indicates that some of the universities were created, some of the what we consider black colleges were actually originally for the offspring of those types of unions. So these black colleges were actually more populated with lighter, fairer skinned people than myself. Okay, I'm probably just average black in America. We're talking a much lighter skin tone. They're beautiful people also, right? In this now, because of this, the power of literature, how it shapes and helps determine a culture, stigmas, way of life. A lot of things are born out of this. This book actually, and 1852 was the second most best-selling book after, you guessed it, the Bible. The Bible's been number one, I think, forever. And her book was number two. Now that's very significant. And it means, and what actually happened is a lot of theater came out of it, a lot of stigmatisms, blackface came out of it. Blackface is where an actor, actress, I think they're all called actors now, actors put on black makeup, and whites and blacks put on blackface. It wasn't just whites putting on blackface, but whites and blacks, and would carry them around as black characters. And there was apparently a popular sister duet, and that would portray a portion of this of Uncle Tom's Cabin. And these sisters would play. One would play a white girl named Eva, and the other would play a black slave girl named Topsy. And the girl was actually covered in black makeup, not just a black face, but her arms, all her exposed skin, so that she could truly be black in that instance. So Harriet's book, from her book came all kinds of, a lot of show business came out of the book, with blackface, with the characters putting on blackface, and the singing and a lot of the dancing and stuff like that. White people acting like black folks, using blackface. Also, a very important point that Dr. Anderson talks about consistently is the interaction between Uncle Tom, kind of the main character, but also a character named Sambo. We'll talk about him, and whether or not we're ascribing an Uncle Tom behavior properly in America. I think we'll be surprised as we see how Uncle Tom, who Uncle Tom really is, and who Sambo really is as we get into this. Family, what struck me so much in the text is probably a very realistic view and idea of separation of families that comes consistently in the book. We'll see how theology figures into slavery. Where is God in all this torture and this abuse? Because remember, American slavery was and is probably the most brutal form of slavery the world has ever seen. I mean, black folks I don't know if we understand what we survived, what we came through. And you have to appreciate that we are still a living, functioning people. We're divided. We got our issues. There's suspicions of us, and we have trouble coming together and whatnot. But it's pretty impressive that we still go on. That means there's plenty of hope of turning this around in the future. We might contrast this piece a little bit with Roots. Roots, just as something that I may try to tease out, is that Roots seems to indicate that slaves were captured one by one. Remember, Kunta Kinte he's caught, and for the first time he's shackled, there's a long piece of him fighting his chains into exhaustion, and then he's subdued by these handlers and trackers there in in Africa. I think near the coast is where he is. He's captured and taken away. We're going to contrast that with the business of slavery, how Arabs figure in to slavery, the economics there, how um, you know you don't get upwards of 35 million black people on a ship, more than half of whom died on the way here, at, one at a time. We'll talk about that, contrast that. That's a later subject I've got to read up on, see what Dr. Anderson says. I know I mentioned him a lot, but you know, um, when just a friend at work said, have you heard this guy? I've not stopped, and my whole life has just made a sharp turn, 90-degree turn, and I'm off and just in a whole new direction, and I'm not complaining about it. I'm not turning back either. More blacks should read this. The text was read, I think in the introduction itself in this book, where it was a textbook, that there's a guy, um, the gentleman critiques this. He's a writer, I get, and it was a textbook. It was required reading at some point in his life. Um, when I got into this material, into this subject, I asked around black folks because you hear Uncle Tom's Cabin. It's almost, it's almost like the Bible. Have you read the Bible? Have you read the Bible all the way through? I have many times, but it's one of those texts. Yeah, you hear about it, like the Bible. Um, I'm not a literary scholar or anything, but if someone said, 1984, that's a very interesting book, something you read a lot. I've never tackled anything ginormous like Gone with the Wind, or something epic like that. So there's a lot of text like that, probably laying around your home. Everybody's got some text laying around. I come through a train station in my town, I've been going back and forth to work, and there's a big space. I guess it's a hotel, and they've got some classic text laying around. Moby Dick, right? And if you're um, Of Mice and Men, right? Those are some texts that um, if you want to appear smart and well read, you can drop some of those names. A big point of it is that also I want to tease out that how literature shapes, informs culture. I say shape and inform, not necessarily become rule of law, but informed, right? We know the golden rule in the Bible, and so many people speak highly of the Bible, yet I think just the other day there was some more mass shootings in a bowling alley, go figure. Like nothing's sacred anymore, yet we got God all over the place and Bibles. We got Bibles to throw away, people giving out Bibles. You can get a Bible and you just go to any church, they'll give you a Bible, plenty of Bible around, but it's not the end all in human behavior, but it has influenced it greatly. This text, Uncle Tom's Cabin, is the same way. It kind of informs how people act, and I wonder if some of my resistance stems from some of the roots and the germs of this individual's book. It's obviously popular, well read by probably a great many people, our ancestors are informed by this. Oh, this is how slave masters act. This is how black people act and stuff. Whether it's true or not, they're reading it and hearing it. So there's our introduction to our text. Meet me tomorrow. We'll get into chapter 1. Maybe, hopefully, we'll finish the whole book by time this year is out. Thanks for listening and stopping by again. This is Tomlin's and I back. 365 days towards racial change.